Hello, fourth grade. So today we're going to be working on the learning objective, I can identify and use positive and negative space. So we looked at a variety of different ideas on how that you could use the positive and negative space in your artwork. And so I'm going to quickly show you some of those, how to do some of those that we saw. So one of the first ones is where you have one subject matter and you create half of it and then you flip it to the other side of your paper. So you're going to get two pieces of paper. One paper is going to stay all in one piece. The other paper you want to fold in half and you want to make a crease. Then you want to open up that paper and you want to cut on that crease because you only need half of the paper. So one paper is the full size and the second paper is just half size. And so then you're going to take your pencil and you're going to draw half of whatever it is that you want to create towards the other side. And in the examples that we saw, there was a heart shape that was in the examples. I think I'm going to do a face. So I'm going to draw just half of it on this half sheet of paper. So I want to draw the hair. And I'm going to draw each thing out as in one shape. And then I want to do the eye. And the nose. Okay, so everything I drew in a shape. So even the nose was just a line, but then I tried to make it a skinny shape or a skinny line so that I have something that I can cut out. So now I'm going to cut out each of these pieces. And when I cut these out, they need to be all in one piece. So I need to follow the line. And then these shapes, I'm going to have to cut a straight line in to get to them. But when I glue this down, you won't see that straight line cut in. And then again, that same thing for the circle and the eye. Okay. So now that I've cut all the pieces out, I'm going to put it back together like a puzzle. So I'm going to start with the outer edge. This step to you might seem silly, but it really helps to get everything where it needs to go and where it should be. And it helps you from being confused. Since I know that this side was my pencil side, any pieces that I have that have pencil lines on them, I know that that's face up the way that they go. So now that I've put it back together, now I'm going to flip every other piece to create my positive and negative. So I'm going to flip it like I'm flipping the page to a book. So for the outer piece, I'm going to flip. So I'm going to put a frame of glue on this outer piece. And I want to get all the little corners and crevices so that it lays flat. And then I line it up with the other side of my paper. Okay, so then this piece is going to stay here. So now the next piece is going to flip. So the face piece is going to flip. So I'm going to put a frame of glue on the face piece and flip it. Now before I lay this down, I want to use the hair as a guide. So my hair would line up right there. And the way that I can find that out too is I could put the hair back over here like a puzzle, and then I could flip it back like the page of a book because it's staying on that side. So then I flip it back this way and I line up these two straight lines. There should be a straight line down the middle. Now the face was laid here, so now it flips back this way and I line up the straight line there. So I should have a straight line. These shouldn't be overlapping and into each other. There should be a nice straight line going, okay? So then I know my eyebrow is going to be on this side, so I'm going to flip it over here, put glue on the top of it, and then flip it back. And this time, it won't be right up against the edge because there's a little bit of space. So I want to kind of use my eyes and look and see how it fits. So now, the eye shape, I put it back in like a puzzle, put glue on top of it, and then I'm going to flip it over to this side. So you can see, let's see this eyebrow, look, the spacing here is thinner than what I did over here, so I didn't put the eyebrow right where it needs to go. So I need to pull that up and move that. And so then that helps me to get my eye where it needs to be. And then the circle shape is here, and then I flip it and it goes on this side. This keeps popping up here, so I need to put a little bit of glue on that. I don't want any of your pieces to pop up. And so there, I've created a face, playing with the positive and negative, flipping the shapes back and forth to create positive and negative. And that's just using one large paper and a half sheet. So an example where it was a rectangle and they tried to make a scene. So it was like an outdoor scene. So they drew like the sun shape, like half a sun shape. And then you're going to cut out each of these all in one piece again. That's one of the sticking points to positive and negative. You can't just cut it out into pieces. You've got to stay right on your pencil lines and cut it out all in one shape. Now these pieces are like the face pieces where you have to go in and cut a straight line. Okay, now the sun can be a little tricky because we have all these little rectangles that look very similar. So we're going to have to pay close attention to getting those put back in the right spot. So the first thing I'm going to do is lay this down. That's about where I want it to be. Oh, I must have pencil lines on here. Okay, so that's about where I want it to be. I have a few pencil lines I didn't exactly cut out the way. So I'm going to erase those. Okay, so I'm going to flip this over, and again, a frame of glue so I don't have little pieces sticking up. Okay, and then I'm going to flip this back over and glue this to the white. Make sure that lays flat. And then now I'm going to set all my pieces back where they go. Something that's helping me is my pencil lines that I didn't cut exactly. I put those pencil side up, so that helps me to know how to fit them in there. And then I'm going to flip these like pages to a book. So I put glue on top, and then I flip it, and I'm going to line up that straight edge. So I didn't do a very good job of drawing a semicircle, did I? That's more of an oval sun instead of a circle sun. Oops. Alright, so then this piece, that's going to create a straight line too, so I'm going to put a little bit of glue, flip it, and line up that straight edge. Okay, and now these pieces I'm going to have to eyeball and kind of try and line them up the same spot that they were lined up down here. So I want to look at that spacing between this line and the edge of the sun to help me to get that spacing correct. If you're off a little bit, that's one thing, but if you're off a ton, then it means that you didn't look to see, to make sure those pieces were lined up fairly close. So it's the same on both sides, symmetry. So I think I'm messing up my, there we go. Didn't space them out. I was worried about the spacing around the edge of the circle, or the oval in this case, and not worried about the spacing between them at the time, so then I had to move them around. And you want to do that quickly before the glue sets up and gets sticky to where you can't move it. I hope you've noticed with all these cut paper, positive and negative, there's a lot of flipping. I have students that don't want to take the time and lay it down like a puzzle and then flip it, and they're gluing them backwards and upside down, and then you don't get credit for the positive and the negative. So I want you to really take your time, whatever way you decide to do the positive and negative, and make sure that you're laying it down like you see me. I mean, I'm the teacher and I'm still laying my pieces down so that I can flip them correctly. So I want you to take your time and do that same thing. So there's a scene of positive and negative using a rectangle on a rectangular piece of paper. That was another one that we saw. We saw a grid where we had squares and a white piece of paper gridded out. So what you can do with these squares is you want to kind of grid out your paper lightly. So you would get a ruler from me that is the width that it needs to be. I'm going to use this ruler here, and you're going to lightly sketch in a grid on your paper. So I'm using the squares to help me. I would give you a ruler that was the width that it needed to be, and then you could just line up the edge of the ruler to make your grid, but I didn't get one of those out today. So that's that. There's 4 lines going one way, and now I need to do 4 lines going the other way to create a grid. I'm not pressing really hard on my pencil. I just want to lightly grid it out, so that'll help me to know where to put the squares. And it's just 3 lines vertical and 3 lines horizontal to get 4 squares across. So now then you'll get all these little squares from me, and you'll draw different shapes on them, just like this one here. You could draw 1 shape, you could draw 3 shapes, you could draw 4 shapes if you want, but you're going to draw them along the edge, and then you'll cut those shapes out all in one piece again. And the first thing you're going to do is glue down your negative, the background piece. Get all the little cracks and crevices so it doesn't stick up. And then you're going to pick any square. You've got a grid, so you're going to pick any square where you want to glue this down at. You want to fit it into the grid. And then you're going to take your pieces, just like a puzzle, and you're going to lay them down. And then you're going to put glue on top and flip them like the page of a book. And you have the pencil lines of the grid to kind of help you to keep those lines straight. Okay, so now when you do your second one, you need to make sure you place it in the correct spot. If I take this and glue this here, when I go to put this piece here and flip it, it would be overlapped, so I know I can't do that. I could turn it and put it here. Maybe I don't want to have 2 negative pieces right next to each other. Maybe I put it over here. So you're going to work within the grid to put your pieces down where they go. Then lay it down like a puzzle, fit it in, and then flip it like the page of a book right along that pencil line to create a straight line right there. Okay, and you're going to keep doing this until you fill in the grid. I've had people that try to cut out letters and create words within the grid, which I think is clever too. But you don't have to do that. It can just be random shapes if you like. I've had people that do the same exact shape over and over again within the grid, and that creates an interesting pattern. Now this negative doesn't really line up with the pencil line, so I'm going to scoot it over a little bit to fit it, and so that this is correct even though it doesn't line up here. So now I did, let's see, if I put this here, I can't flip it there, so that's not going to work. If I put this here, I can flip this one here, and then I could flip this one here. So that'll work. So I'm going to glue this down. So as you get starting to fill up your grid, you're going to have to be real careful about where you place your pieces as you're working. Oh, look what I did. I didn't do what I told you to do. I didn't put my piece down. Oh, I did. Okay, I did put the glue in the right spot. I lucked out. But you got to put your piece down like a puzzle and then flip it. And I thought I put my glue on the wrong side. So I want to make sure I don't do that, because if I put my glue on the wrong side of the piece, then I'm going to have to get a paper towel, wipe the glue off, put the glue on the right side, the correct side, and then flip it. All right, and you're just gonna keep doing this until you fill up your grid. So like if I'm gonna do something here, I know I need to just cut one side of it and glue it and flip it. And then here, this square, you might have to leave a square or two empty to get everything filled in, but that's how you would do a grid. And then the last thing that you're going to do, the last option that you could do is, let's say you don't want to do cut paper and glue, and that's just not your thing. Then what I want you to do, you could do a drawing, a positive and negative drawing. What I want you to do is get some scrap paper, and I have this green left over. And I want you to draw whatever it is that you want to repeat over and over again. And I think I even, since this paper's so small, I want my item to be smaller so that I can draw it repeatedly on there. And we saw an example of like a fly or a bee insect. Let's see, what could I draw? I'm going to do an ice cream cone just to kind of show you how to do it. Our example were bugs. Bugs are great. Then they're fun to do, positive and negative. So I'm just going to do the outline of an ice cream cone. I'm going to draw an ice cream cone on my paper. And what I'm doing is just creating a pattern that I can draw the same thing repeated over and over again. And then I will add details to it once I get this drawn. Okay. Now, when I cut this out, I'm going to cut this out in one piece. So I wouldn't want to cut on these lines here on the bottom of the ice cream. So you want to make yourself a pattern of something that you're going to draw over and over again on your paper. And so now this is a pattern. So I'm going to trace around this over and over again. And since you've created a pattern, you need to trace it neatly. I'm not doing a very good job of that right now. And you might even want to draw lightly. So you're going to get a geometric shape to add to this drawing, and you're going to want it to touch and overlap the ice cream cones or whatever your subject matter is. And in the example that we saw, it was circles, and so I'm using a circle too, but if you want to use squares or triangles, you just come see me and I'll give you a pattern. Okay. And so then now I'm going to go through and I'm going to add all the detail to my ice cream cone. So it's not just a profile. Then you want you to erase any pencil lines that are poking out. And then what you're going to try and do is kind of create like a checkerboard effect. If you color in your circles black, then the ice cream would be left white and the cone would be left white. If you leave the circle white, then these would be colored and then these would be left white. So you can kind of alternate within each space, or you can keep it the same each time you go. So let's say, like for example, I'm going to color in, and I'd rather use a chisel tip marker for any large areas because it'll fill in faster. And I want you to use a nice juicy marker that works. Don't use any faded old gray markers. And also with the permanent markers, if you color super fast, even if they are nice and juicy, they're going to color gray. So you're going to kind of have to color slowly. And so then I would leave the ice cream white. And then when I color in the ice cream on the other side, I want to leave a little white line there. Well, actually I don't. I want to leave the white line between the two ice cream scoops. So when I color this in, I'm going to leave a little white space between the two scoops so you can see the difference and the change. And then same with the squares and the cone. I'm going to leave a little bit of white space between each of them so you can see the change in the edges of them. So it can get a little tricky with the drawing part. But then by leaving those little white edges where the change is with the cone, then you can tell that those details are still there. So like for this one, I could keep it the same. I could color the circle black, but I'm going to change and I'm going to color the ice cream black inside the circle. And then I'm going to leave a little bit of space between the two scoops. And so now on this side, I would leave it white. So this is white, and this is color black on the inside, so this is left white. Then I can go back to start to color in the circles here. Okay, and then you would just keep going and coloring in, alternating between coloring in the positive shape or coloring in the negative shape.